I am thrilled to introduce today our featured speakers, which is Katie Wilson and Jenna Nicoletti Williams. Jenna and Katie bring their expertise in AAC and speech language pathology as well. They are a part of our Point Quest team, and they push the mission to deliver compassionate, individualized support with our students with special needs, particularly those with complex communication needs. So, without further delay, let's go ahead and welcome Katie and Jenna to share their insights with us. The virtual floor is yours.
Thank you, Ricardo. Um, Little more about me. I'm Jenna. I've been with Jobbergen since February, but working exclusively in AAC for like 15 years now. I'm really happy to be here and share my experience with you.
All right, hello, and I am Katie. I have been with Jabberjim for a very long time, and now Point Quest, and only been doing AAC for 5 years, but it feels like a lot longer than that. Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started. Let me share our presentation. We did practice this beforehand, so we'll see. Are you seeing my screen? Yay! Okay, success. All right. So, our topics today, we'll go a little bit more in depth on vocabulary. We'll cover some communication partner training, modeling, kind of the crux of AAC teaching and learning, and lastly, classroom and visual supports. So if you were here last month, we did cover a little bit about vocabulary. We covered core vocabulary, fringe vocabulary, why we don't make activity-specific pages, and the importance of motor planning. So today we'll go a little bit more in depth on that. We'll talk about personalizing your vocabulary sets for your AAC users, which is very important. When you think about it, vocabulary selection and those of us who are in charge of selecting vocabulary have a big responsibility on our hands. Our students, our AAC users can only say what is in their communication device. So if we haven't programmed a word or a phrase in there, then they're not able to say it, which is kind of a heavy thought. That thought hits me every once in a while. It's kind of a big thing. So this is a pretty big part of AAC. So first we have to select the correct grid. And now if you are an SLP, this could be on you. If you are not, hopefully you will have an SLP to select the grid size for you and the system that they're using. We always start as big as possible. So the most icons that they can possibly handle per page. We only want to decrease the amount of icons per page if they have fine motor limitations or visual limitations. So if they can't see the icons, then that's going to make it really hard to select the icons. And similarly, if they're not able to point and make selections, if we call them mishits. If they're going to say chips and they accidentally say yogurt, that's going to be really frustrating. So we might have to increase the size of the icons, therefore decreasing the amount of icons they have per page. Um, Going back to what we talked about last month, if you were here, motor planning is really, really important for our AAC users. We want to decrease their cognitive load while they're communicating as much as possible. So if they don't know where the word is and they have to search for it every time, that's a lot of work. So we want to decrease that by helping them learn a motor pattern. If we start with only 4 icons per page, and have them learn those motor patterns. And then we want to change it in the future because we deem it appropriate to give them more vocabulary, then they're going to have to completely relearn that motor pattern. So we don't want that for our AAC users. We want to start with as much as they can access right off the bat so they can start practicing and memorizing those motor patterns. Um, Another reason not to limit the icon amount, we're not presuming competence. If they don't have access to the language, again, they can't learn the language and they can't use the language. If you think about it, if I only was able to say, today I feel happy, sad, good, or sick, then what am I going to do when I feel frustrated, when I feel scared, when I feel sleepy, when I'm anxious? I need to be able to have access to that language so that I can both learn it and use it. If we limit vocabulary, we're limiting our students' potential. So we definitely want to start as big as possible. Another reason to go with more vocabulary rather than less. It seems pretty counterintuitive. I always hear from teams, they have too many icons per page, they're frustrated, they're overwhelmed. I don't know that I've seen many students be frustrated. I have seen a lot of adults be overwhelmed. So typically it's the adults look at the page and there it's just a lot to learn, which is totally fair. But I'm going to show you why it's actually a lot easier to navigate a grid with more icons. So let's say I want to request chips because I am really hungry and I love chips. On this four grid, this is Touch Chat with Word Power. This is the simple basic SS vocabulary with four icons per page. And I want you guys to count with me how many clicks it takes to get to chips, right? So all I want to say is chips. So first I'm going to click on I want. And this is just part of the slides. It's not actually going to say the words for me, but we'll say I want. So that's one click. Now I have to select which one of these things I want. So I want to eat. That's pretty easy to assume that chips are going to be under the eat picture. So that's my 2 clicks for eat. Now I only have 3 options and none of these are the thing that I want. I'm not in the mood for pudding, crackers are boring, and well, I would like candy, but now I have to click the next icon again. So that's 3 clicks, and now I've gotten to chips. On the fourth click, I can say chips. And that is a lot of steps for me to remember. A lot of our AAC users might not have strong memory skills. It just may take a long time to learn this. So 4 clicks to get to chips. Now, if we have, this is Touch Chat with Word Power 60 Basic. There are 60 icons per page. As you can see, this could look more overwhelming. However, I can already see that the word eat is right here, which is a lot easier for me to remember than that I want button if I'm looking for chips because I'm going to eat the chips. So I'm going to click eat. And then, oh wow, I can already say chips. So that is only 2 clicks that helped me say eat chips. So again, it's pretty counterintuitive to a lot of people in the beginning that actually more vocabulary is a lot easier and a lot less of a cognitive load. Also on that other vocabulary, let me go back really quickly. So we're on the food. I like a lot more than 3 foods, like a lot more than 3 foods. If I could only ask for 3 foods every time I was hungry, I would be very frustrated and I would want to throw this thing out the window because this is not helping me. I can only ask for 3 things and none of them are what I want. So the more vocabulary we have access to, the better. All right. As far as personalization, we want to, again, going back to this is a big responsibility. We want to make sure they have access to everything they want to talk about. In order to personalize vocabularies, I usually send home a questionnaire to the family and also a questionnaire to the classroom staff. The questionnaire to the family is usually a Google form because that's just easier. But for staff, I've actually started printing it out so that everyone can write on it together. One person might know that Johnny likes bubble guppies while the other person knows that he really likes Blippy. So we want to make sure we get everyone's input and we can get all of their favorite stuff in there. Uh, we also don't want to forget things like slang, which is very challenging with young people today to keep up with. But we definitely want to include slang so that they can be social and keep up with their peers. Medical needs, I've got some kids with seizure disorders. We want to make sure that I feel like I'm going to have a seizure is front and center. Sensory needs, a lot of kids might need a break, a walk around, maybe they want squeezes. Age-appropriate jokes, self-advocacy, and personal information. That one is a big one for safety. A lot of kids, especially non-speaking kids, won't be able to tell someone their address or their parents' phone number if they get lost. So we always make sure that their personal information is programmed in, and that's often an early therapy goal to make sure that they're able to access that personal information. All right, so the rules for personalizing vocabulary. Number one is we don't edit the home page. That is because these are highly research-based vocabulary sets. They know exactly what is going to be used the most, and that's why they're on the home page. The only exceptions I will make would be for those medical needs. I feel like I'm going to throw up. I feel like I'm going to have a seizure. That needs to be on the homepage. If we're potty training for obvious reasons, also that can go on the homepage. Or if there's a self-regulation need, we can have an icon that says, I really need a break right now. Aside from that, though, I never edit the homepage. Second, we don't want to duplicate words. So these vocabulary sets have lots and lots and lots of words in them. We only want them in one place, again, to make sure our motor pattern is we only have one motor pattern to find the word nose. So the way to do this is make sure you search for the word before you add a word. Third, we want to focus on what the AAC user is going to want to say, not what we want to say to the AAC user. So a lot of times I will give a form to a teacher and they will say, okay, he needs to have quiet hands, sit in your chair, circle time, all this stuff that we're saying to him, as opposed to what he wants to say. I doubt little Johnny will ever care to tell me quiet hands. I don't think he cares if my hands are quiet or not. So we probably don't need to program that in. Number four, we're not going to hide icons. This is a really helpful feature. Sometimes most systems will let you hide icons to where they're still there, you just can't see them. We don't want to hide options that are not available. I've had this happen a lot where, it's snack time and Johnny wants goldfish and we don't have goldfish today and he keeps asking for it, so I'm just going to hide it. And we really don't want to be doing that. It's pretty unethical. If you think about it, it would be like stealing a word from a verbal child's head. We want to give him the right to say it, even though we don't have access to it, and we might just have to say no 100 times. Ooh, look at that. The space bar actually goes to the next slide too. Cool. All right. And lastly, back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up, back it up. These vocabularies are highly personalized. Every single system has a way to back it up or save it. We need to be doing this. I always recommend we identify one person whose job it is to back up the vocabulary on the team, whether it be usually the SLP or the AAC specialist. Sometimes parents are really good about this. If we lose the vocabulary, then we're going to have to recreate it. We might not remember where everything goes, so the motor patterns are lost, and it just is really time consuming for their already very busy staff. So we definitely want to make sure we are backing up their vocabulary. All right, I'm going to hand it off to Jenna. Speaking of our communication partners and teams, over to Jenna.
Thank you. And a lot of those conversations about who's backing up and who's responsible for different aspects happen in communication partner training. I know these things can feel really overwhelming. AAC can be overwhelming if you don't feel like you have enough knowledge, if you didn't get enough training in grad school, if you don't know the tools, because there's so many tools and it could be a full-time job to even keep up with all the tools all the time. And you don't know where to get help. It could be really overwhelming. And we know that this is very emotional. Like when we are talking to families and we know that communication is a fundamental human right, we know that it's communication is integral for education success and vocational success and social success. So we know that it can be very emotional, and but we want to give people the tools through communication partner training to reduce the stress that everybody feels, that even the students feel, but the staff and the families, of course, too. We want to decrease the pressure of not knowing where to go or not knowing the tools or not having the knowledge, and change the quality of relationships that communication can do. It has such a great impact on relationships. So right? What we are seeing really frequently with our students is that they're playing a very passive role. They're rarely initiating interactions. They have very limited context that they're communicating within, and very reduced linguistic forms. They have little opportunity to interact with other people and especially their peers. But what we really want AAC to be is for it to be used very frequently, interactively, and generatively to express a very wide range of communicative intents. We don't want to fall down the requesting rabbit hole. We want it to occur in at least 80% of ongoing classroom programming. Just like if you were in a deaf or hard of hearing class, manual sign would be used in just 80% or more of programming. If you were in a typical class, you would have speech that's used in more than 80% of ongoing classroom programming. So AAC should be no different. We want it to mediate communication with their classmates, as well as the wide range of personnel, teachers and aides and therapists and clinicians. And we want it to be designed in a way that is both time effective and cost effective to everyone involved. So, what is a good communication partner? Next slide. They are, it really can depend on their prior experience with AAC and the success they've had with it in the past. That if they are feeling anxious or like haven't had success with it, they might just avoid it altogether. And this happens even with SLPs. I have worked with this SLP this year that told me I don't use AAC in my therapy because I have not had success with it in the past. So we don't want that to happen. We want it to be like just like most of the other things we enjoy and do in life. If we are good at something, we tend to gravitate towards it. And if we're not, then we will shy away from it. If someone asked me to go ice skating, I'd be like, heck yes, I'm in. Let's go, because I know I'm going to be good at it and I'm going to be successful with it. But if someone said, let's go rock climbing, I'm going to be like, ooh, I'm going to pass. My upper body strength is actually very poor and I'm going to fail miserably. So I'm going to say no. So, and that's really normal with human behavior. These are all things that we do as not only children, but even as adults. We'll shy away from the things that we just like don't feel good about or we feel like we're going to fail at. And communication really is no different, especially as adults, because we have all these learned choices and behaviors. We're likely to say no to something too. And we want people to have success and lean into it. Because once they're feeling successful, we're more likely to breed that confidence and the likelihood to continue to do it. AEC is no different. Next slide, please. Our users and our communication partners really need to gain those positive experiences. They need to have fun. They need to feel delighted and joyful. That's like Katie was saying, like having jokes on there, having slang, like using communication to fit in with your peers. That's how we're going to create like joy from communication. We want to have shared successful communication experiences and make really genuine connections. Um, we want this child to feel confident every day, and we want to give them positive experiences with their communication device. Same goes for us as adults. Oh, geez. So, unlike what Katie was sharing with the vocabulary, we're going to choose to start small when it comes to communication partner training and being able to give them skills and ways of supporting their AAC users in smaller chunks as opposed to bigger ones. We can during 1 week, just start with modeling during a specific activity. On the third week, we can add snack time. And then later down the road, maybe we add from home. Or if we're working at home and school concurrently, we're still going to treat them like small and then to big. We want to expand then to some highly specific and very motivating contexts because it's much easier for the communication partner to know what they're doing and be prepared and feel like they can be successful if they know what the skill is that they're trying to use. We don't want these particular activities to last too long. We want them to be simple, shorter, and that way we can make changes as we go much more easily. We don't want to bite off more than we can chew, and we want to make choices that create everybody's successful feeling so that we're not being counterproductive to either the student or the adults. Next slide. because this is what the research says and supports in this area. The two most important factors related to the successful long-term use of AAC is one, the degree in which the individual users and communication partners value the tool as a tool of communication success. I'm so sorry. And the user's communicative success. This is really critical because this even in the research points out that communication partners have to value it too, because we're the ones that are making AAC happen every single day. And it really will be pivotal to the student success for us to value it as well. And none of us can be where our students are at all times. And so we do need this to be a team of people that's making the tool available to this user wherever they are. And we also need them to have more than just a few chances to develop that success. And yes, we're going to start small when it comes to supporting them, but we're going to grow into multiple contexts all day, every day, every single communication partner being equally trained and being able to support the user um, in their success. So, what do our partners need to know? We need to know how to operate the system. If we think about the different competencies of communication, operational competence is critical, and our communication partners need to be operationally competent. We need to be able to play around with these systems. We need to be able to make mistakes, and that's how we're going to learn. Even if when we're giving training or receiving training, and we don't want to make mistakes because we don't want to be bad at something, we're just going to have to make people like learn those operational skills, and be able to try to execute them. This is things like turning on the device, knowing how to use it, taking care of it, updating it, any kind of repairs. Of course, who's responsible for backing that up? Knowing, because it's definitely not worth anyone's time or effort to lose what we have created, how to customize it, how to edit it, and if we are all editing or if it's just one person that's going to be editing. So we want to know who's responsible for all these things on these teams. Next, we also need to be linguistically competent. We don't just need to know how to turn on these devices. We need to know, or any of the other operational things, we need to know the language that's inside. We need to know how the vocabulary is organized and where things are located. And even if there's a search function, how to use it, because we can't model it if we don't. And this is also a really integral part of the training, is being able to walk through the vocabulary and like implore the importance of modeling. And that's where Katie is going to continue that conversation.
I can only continue the conversation if I'm unmuted. All right, so modeling is, like I said before, kind of the crux of AAC teaching and learning. Modeling just means that we are going to use the device to talk to our AAC users, just like we expect them to use their device to talk to us. If you're reading and geeking out over AAC stuff like I do, you might also see this called aided language stimulation or aided language input. It's all the same thing. Modeling is just kind of the colloquial term. Um, when we're modeling, or when we think about modeling, we want to remember that AAC users are new to expressive symbolic language. So, not just the fact that they're using icons, but many of these kids have never used expressive language successfully before outside of just gestures and natural behaviors. So, they truly are learning not just a new language, but learning language overall. If they're not seeing us use the device, there is no way for them to learn it. Imagine if we said, okay, you're going to learn how to speak Farsi, and I'm going to show you 3 words twice a week in your speech therapy sessions, but then everybody on the team is going to expect you to speak Farsi fluently to them to communicate. It's the same exact thing we're asking of these AAC users. They really, really, really need to be seeing everyone around them as often as possible using their AAC system. So a few do's and don'ts. We call it, I will use the term modeling, but the whole phrase is modeling without expectation. So just like if you were talking to a toddler, And modeling verbal words, we're not expecting them to respond and imitate every single thing we say. So we're modeling without expectation of any response. They don't even have to look at us, but we want to be still giving them that good language input. Um, don't model what you think they want to say because we have no idea. Model what you want to say to the student. So I obviously love chips. If I'm looking at chips and kind of gesturing towards chips, I still probably wouldn't model the word chip. I would probably model the word eat. Hey, it looks like you want something to eat. Let's open these and see if you like them. So we want to model what you would want to say to the student. Don't focus on modeling complete sentences. Don't try to model every single thing you say. We're going to try to stay one step ahead of where the student is at. So a lot of our AAC users are still in the emergent stage, so they're using one single icon to communicate at a time. So that's what we want to be modeling. Sometimes maybe two icons, like I showed earlier. It's easier to find chips if you go to eat chips. So maybe modeling a two-word phrase, but we don't need to say, oh, I want to eat chips right now. We don't need to do all of that for our new users. Um, we also don't want to get lost looking for words. We're going to keep the focus on genuine communication. So if I'm saying, okay, I know you want chips, I want to tell you where chips is, I'm going to spend 5 minutes looking. Well, he's already got the chips and he's gone, and we lost that communication connection. So we want to keep that connection and focus on that above all else, and then model words that are a little bit easier to access or model words that you already know where they are. And don't worry about making mistakes. Just narrate through it. So I have an example if we have time. We're both pretty chatty, so we might not have time for the videos. But I have some good video examples of modeling. And if you do make a mistake, just say, oops, I didn't mean to say yogurt. I meant to say chips. I'm going to delete that and hit chips. That way you're showing them that they're okay to make a mistake, and you're talking them through how to fix that mistake. So some tips, again, use your own words. We already covered that. Make it fun. So we all know that the research shows that we learn best when we are playing and having fun. I can't remember what the stats are, but it's something like you have to do something like a quarter of the amount of times if you're doing it in play to actually learn and grasp a concept, as you would if you're doing it in like a structured, boring activity. So make it fun when you're communicating with them. Focus on something that they enjoy. The first thing I do when I go see every single student is ask the people who know them what they like. Okay, Johnny likes, like I said, Blippi. We're gonna watch Blippi. We're gonna talk about Blippi. We're gonna talk about the colors about Blippi, where everything is gonna be Blippi because he's gonna be interested, engaged, and he's gonna be learning. Um, we want to focus on statements more than questions, just because life is not a test. We all get into that asking a bunch of questions. Oh, what color is Blippi's hat? Oh, where is Blippi? Oh, let's talk about that. No, I'm just going to say, oh, I like his blue hat. Ooh, it looks like he's at the park today. He's having so much fun. So we're not quizzing them, again, because we're modeling without expectation. Let the child lead. Again, this goes back to number two, making it fun. If you brought a puzzle activity with you because you heard Johnny likes puzzles and he walks away and goes and picks up a ball, follow him. Talk about the ball instead. That's totally fine. Again, he's gonna learn when he's interested in what you're talking about. And then lastly, remember our goal for our students is spontaneous and independent communication. We want to model things that they would say on their own. I'm not going to say, Blippi is on top of something because I want him to learn pronouns. I want to say, oh, cool. And that's what I'm going to model because that's what a child would say. We want to focus on spontaneous communication with them. All right, so the kind of nuts and bolts, how do I model? What am I going to model on? The best option is always to have your own separate communication device with a matching vocabulary. Um, with the introduction of iPads, we do have a lot cheaper options. So that is kind of an option for a lot of people. You can have a separate iPad with that exact program and that exact vocabulary, that's perfect because that way you're not modeling for them on their device and then having to go back to the home and see them do it again. It's always best to have your own device. If you can't, the next best thing would be a low-tech printout of their exact vocabulary. Super easy to make, especially on an iPad, screenshot and print it off. Third would be a core board with the same icons, so the same images that they have on their vocabulary. Even if it doesn't match, they're still seeing you use the language and the words and the icons in the context of when those words should be used. And lastly, you can use their device as long as you ask for consent. Just like you wouldn't go up to a person in a wheelchair and sit in their lap, we're not going to steal their communication device to talk unless they consent to it. Most kids do, not everyone though. You will get kids who will rip that thing away because it's their voice and they have that right. So as long as you have their consent, it's totally fine to model on their device. Let me see. I could.
Hello, today we'll
Okay,
be
so
reading the book Brown Bear, What
yeah,
Do You
we'll do this
See?
and then
By
one more
Eric
episode,
Carle.
one more activity.
Thank
So
you for
this
listening.
guy,
Aided language input using
no,
the
do I
Stat Plus
have?
4 first.
Nope, I don't have control over it. I was going to show you the middle of the video. I thought I. Nope. Okay, well, that video is pretty long. We'll watch a little bit of it. We'll do like a solid 30 seconds so you can see what modeling actually looks like.
What Do You See? By Eric Carle. We will be providing aided language
So
input
he is
using
using an
Stat
app
Plus
called
4
TD Snap, using the core first vocabulary, and there's a lot of icons on there, as you can see.
Pulled up, and we will be using an 80 grid size. The words that I will be focusing on during the reading will be see, and you. All right, let's get started.
So you'll notice that he's only going to use one word at a time.
Brown bear, what do you see?
He's using it within the context of the activity.
I see a red bird looking at me. Red bird, what do you see?
All right. So you only get a little bit of that, but you get the idea, I think. I hope. So we're just modeling a few words at a time. I love how he selected a few core vocabulary words in the beginning of the activity to target. Because that is, and he also picked words that are on the home page. He didn't spend a bunch of time going through and saying, oh, where's brown, where's bear, where's yellow, where's bird, because that would have taken away from the activity. So he's just layering on language on top of the activity. So in a perfect world, we would all be modeling all day, every day for our AAC users, and they would be in a very rich language AAC environment. Obviously, that is not possible for most of us, especially in the school setting. So how do we get started? So there are a couple of ways that I would recommend. One is to pick a single word. So there are lots and lots of programs, lots of word of the week type programs. I recently found a really good one from Assistiveware. This is it. It gives you the words and it gives you 52 of them. So like is this word of the week. It gives you books that you could read that all have the word like in them. And it gives you, oh, I skipped that one. Different ways and reasons you would use the word like. So requesting, gaining attention, choice making, or refusing and rejecting. So these are really great programs, and this could basically, it could be your therapy plan for the week. It could be just what you focus on. Oh, somebody just said like, oh, I like it, and model that way. There are also, oh, I think I might have taken the participant. Oh, there are also participation plans that you could develop. So during each activity of their school day, when they arrive, we're going to say good morning and tell you how we feel. And then that's plenty of modeling for that activity. During classwork, we might need to ask for help or a break. So we're going to model those things. And lastly, activity specific modeling. This is one of my favorite tools for learning how to model and what to model. We don't have time to go through it fully, but the motivating item is bubbles because that is my nickname and a very motivating item for most of us. So this gives you different reasons why you would communicate and what words you might use. So you can go through and list out word language that you could use for each reason. So, how do you feel about bubbles? I would say fun, wow, cool. Action words, pop, blow, go, stop. Who and what does the action? Probably you or me, maybe Miss Katie, maybe Johnny. Describing words, big, little, fast, slow. Associated nouns, I probably wouldn't use a lot for bubbles, maybe wand, but probably just bubbles. Words to negate or express cessation, stop, no more, and words to initiate recurrence would be more. So you can plan an activity and then go through and brainstorm in each of those areas based off of your students' core vocabulary that they have available on their device. Okay. We did participation plans and we'll go into classroom and visual supports.
So we covered the modeling and the participation plans and some word of the week strategies, and those are all great starting points for like full classroom implementation. And we want to talk further, obviously, about how we can make our language visible and selectable, very wide reaching. We want to align that classroom with how most of our STC class students learn. They learn better visually, and we want to use consistent visuals across their day. We want to be able to pre-teach them, model them, and like set a very fair expectation. And these are often very simple things that can be overlooked in these classrooms. This is so critical because it allows our students like the ability and time to focus. It allows them time to process. It allows a reference to turn back to. It gives them a way to relate the past to the present and the future to the present. It reduces the abstraction of language with a very concrete representation, and it really reduces the stress of the unknown. And why are they so helpful for us? They provide a structure and predictability. It reduces the or encourages the consistency in cognitive load demands. It encourages the consistency across the day with different staff members and family members, and across environments. We are providing an anticipation of expectations, hopefully, and then reducing behaviors. Also, providing a framework for any sort of shift or change, which can be challenging for some of our students, and a visual path for a sequence of event. Um, yes, it is a time an investment for you to put the time in to create them, but are they worth it? Absolutely. If you're using templates or word banks or existing tools that are out there, you're reducing your workload and getting the payoff of them. And very similar to AAC, we want these to be as time and cost effective as possible because they really truly make a difference. So we're going to talk about the environment. Janice Light, and I know this was a very long time ago that she said this, but it still is critical today, that communicative competence is the ability to communicate functionally in the natural environment, to adequately meet daily communication needs. And when we talk about functionality, we're saying that it is like messages that are real in their real life, not just in therapy or not just in small contexts. We're saying that it is available like for across the day, across places and people, the class, the cafeteria, the community. We want it all to be functional communication across their natural environment. We're not saying that it's the app that the district only provides, or that it's the modality that the one person recommends that everybody use, or what we're most comfortable with. We're saying that it's the most reliable modality, and that, as we even shared in part one, it could be very multimodal. But when we're looking at the all of the natural environments, we're going to really obviously focus on the classroom here. This is where we are going to do what I'm going to call engineering the environment. We want to normalize AAC for everyone. We want to drop the stigma that could be associated with it, and we want to increase the repetition of the increased repetition and in turn increase language. We want our AEC users and the whole class to understand that this is happening just in their environment. These are, this is one really large example of a core board. This is, I feel like, one critical thing that needs to be in all classrooms. It could be hard to print. I understand that you want to, it's something that you'll probably need to send out for printing. But there are files that are available online, whether they're free. The one that I have here from Symbol Sticks was free. This picture of the one with from like PRC. I don't know if that one's free or not, but shared on Speech Room News here that you can print it in a very large format. I think this one is specifically 30 inches by 50 inches. And it's posted on the front of the classroom. That way, the AEC is, the icons are being used in the environment at all times. It's something that they're referring to. It's something that they're integrating. Um, and it's something that we're using throughout the day. We can make them also smaller and put them on our tables or our desks. And those same ones can be created like into lanyards. And we want people to be having them across their entire environment. Next slide. We also want to be labeling items. We want to expose these kids, to a very print-rich environment. We want them to see the name of things on the items where they are. Some examples here. A clearly labeled classroom can boost independence and literacy and organization. They can help things be grouped um, by sections, and you use Velcro to be able to reuse them and move these things around. We also can label actions and label like open door or turn on lights to model that functional language. I had also seen an example in when I was looking around for ideas where it modeled the pathway to get to that word. So sort of how Katie had shown you, like getting to chips, it showed the sequence of icons to get to that word for that specific label in that environment. We want these labels to be taught at the beginning of the year. And we also want to make it fun. We can make a scavenger hunt out of it. We can just do enjoyable things that make these labels in the environment enjoyable for everyone involved. And when we're looking at the environment, we know that we often have students that are exposed to very different symbol types. We know that there are quite a few symbols out there. And even just looking at here with the word want, the very different ways that it can all be represented. Choosing it for your environment, it's really important that you're looking at your students, what they currently have access to, and being able to take data on that. It's easier to make decisions if it aligns with a curriculum, like if they're using the unique learning system. You want to be using the same icons as the curriculum. If that's not specific to that classroom, we're wanting to choose a symbol set in our engineered environment that reduces confusion and the potential for slower language development, because we want it to be as data driven to how as many students are exposed to it, and as many people as many of these kids are able to consistently use it across their environment to scaffold both like receptive and expressive language in their everyday classroom routines. Really, really quickly, I'm going to show you some more examples of ways that we're going to use visuals in our environment, not just in the whole classroom, but some smaller ideas. This is a visual schedule, super important. We all know like how easy these can be overlooked, but we want them to be used very effectively to list different parts of the day or, even the whole day. It helps them prepare for what's next and even know when their favorite activity is going to occur. I have some different examples for you. This next one is very like student specific. It's color coded. Ollie is purple, and his picture's on it, so that helps that child know that this is his schedule. If we have different kids doing different things throughout the day, like Ollie goes to speech at 2 o'clock, that's going to be in his schedule. We can break it up with morning and afternoon, and we also can be very wise and have things like a star or something that indicates maybe something that's unknown. We If we need to indicate transitions or we need to indicate changes in a schedule, this is a really great way to be able to say like, there's an assembly, but you didn't have an assembly icon. Teaching that something as flexible like a star can go on the schedule will really help you plan and be prepared for things that are unknown. Looking at one last idea is this is an object schedule. So we have real objects tied together with our icons or our written word to be able to go through that. These can be put, these are things that we can take off and we can put in a done area. These are really great for students that have CVI or low vision, being able to use those things that are manipulative and tactile, super great for students like that. First then boards. These are all things that like we can even benefit from because I need a reminder to do my work first and then play. But just simply put, first and boards are very good for behavior modification and supporting motivation. It's two very clear steps and very predictable. Generally, the first is maybe like an unmotivating activity, and then is ideally like something that is more reward based or positive, teaching them to do the first before the then. Expanding this into something that we call a task sequence. We're taking a super specific task, for example, here, washing hands. We're going to reduce the anxiety and the executive functioning load and be able to boost independence for these kids. We want to keep them 3 to 6 steps at maximum, and we want to move from left to right or top to bottom. We don't want too many steps, and we definitely don't want things that can move around, and we want to place these task sequences where they're relevant. So this one would go next to your sink. Behavior goals, I know we often have them in speech sessions, but it's super important to set the expectations, walk these through, and make it like the norm that we're doing certain things. These belong in the classroom, especially too, and they can have uh, positive things like have fun. That can be a rule as well. This this is out of place, but I'm going to share what this is anyways. This is um, a self-talk card. We're also trying to increase independence and give these students a way for them to self-teach or self-remind themselves that they can modify their behavior. This is an example for I can raise my hand before I answer the question. Other things can be I can listen to the teacher, I can keep my hands safe, I can stay on task. And these can all relate to goals in an IEP as well. So it can be the student will use a self-talk card to remind themselves to initiate a greeting or use eye contact. Next, we're looking at choice boards. These may be low tech or these may be high tech because there's apps available. to use to create these as well. Those might be super helpful if you're having to be able to make choices on the fly. We can also develop turn taking with these. I choose once and then you choose once. And then they can scale up to something that's bigger, like the next example. And then my third example here, which I just made here in Canva, is things that you cannot choose. And so this can also like modify behavior when you have a kid that is, gravitating to free time, always has to be on technology or whatever it is. We can have our things we cannot choose as well. Social narratives. These are short stories that give them preparation that you can rehearse when they are calm and give them a visual support for being able to increase certainty and teach coping strategies. This one here is a short story about hugging. That I want to give my friends a hug, but now that I'm older, some people don't want to be hugged. This is three different slides worth of an example. It gives them what they can do instead, and then also gives them that positive reinforcement of like giving people space makes them happy and I can do it. So we really want to include like what happens, how it might feel, what I can do instead, and even like who could help or but we always want to end with a very positive message like and I'm successful or and then I did it.